it's Lynn with Soft Square. Today we're going to look at my fabric wall and how I organize it. Stick around. Alright, now I have a very specific way that I fold and organize my fabric. And this is what works for me. I'm using these modular cubicles or cubbies. And I've got a couple different things coordinated stacked to make this big wall unit. And there's Piper. Hi! Anyway, these bins that are down here below, they are 12 by 12. So if you were to want to do something similar to what I'm doing using the space the way I'm doing it, you're going to need the cubby holes in the bins that are at least 12 by 12. There are some others that are 10 by 10. Don't get those. They're not as roomy and don't work quite as well. So let's talk about this. By the way, every time I move, I reconfigure this, so it's just a bunch of things kind of all set together and rearranged based off of the space that I have. This thing right here actually is a bench. I've got two of them. Took the pad out of it, and then I had to use little boards to brace that space because there's a rimmer on the back side, but it lifted this up because really I don't want to be reaching to the floor. But this works because then I have ironing stuff and miscellaneous sheet sets and things I don't need to get in, office supplies. Alright, so first thing I'm going to show you is this. You're probably wondering what this is. These are my embroidery hoops for my embroidery machine. I actually have two. They're the FAF Creative 2.0 and a 4.5. I haven't done any tutorials using the machine yet. I have made some quilts, and you've seen some quilt blocks possibly that have embroidery on it. These are just the hoops that are needed for the machine and where I store them. I'm in a really small space. It's a second bedroom. And eventually I will be getting a bigger room, but right now this is what we're working with. Also, I want to point out before going any further, these are magnetic strips that have a sticky backing, so I actually just stuck them on here. And these are big magnets, because even though I have a design wall, and I'll show you that, this is right next to my sewing machine. And so sometimes it's nice to get a whole row, be able to put it up. And those strips, I've got it all the way across over to here, allows me to put several rows and be able to see what's going on and work with it in here because my design wall is in a different area. Alright, so first thing you probably notice is we've got some solid looking things here and here. They're actually two different categories in my opinion. So these are ones that actually have a print to them. Okay, so if you were to look really close, you would see there's actually more to this than just the solid, but at a distance, they would be considered a solid. But all of these have some sort of a tone-on-tone or a little print, but from a distance, it's considered solid. Now, these really are solids. These are more the, like Kona Cotton and Wilmington, just the solids. That's a basket of batting, because I don't let anything go to waste. Over here, we have more of the solids, but we're getting into prints. But at a quick glance, you do see, you know, these have a very minimal print or color variation. So you might see two colors, like the teal and the white, or the aqua and white, but it's not super busy on most of these. You can still see those. When we come down here, we're getting to bigger prints, a little more busy fabric, and then busier down here. And I have a certain way of how I fold the fabric, so I will show you how I do that. On this side of the wall is what I call backing fabric, which means I have something that's at least 4 yards of fabric that could be used for backing. And I fold them differently, and I have pieces stuffed on top. And then I also have fabric down here where they're big pieces, but I kind of ran out of ways to organize because space. And this little unit has little small, I use these little drawers in here for my notions, and a lot of gadgets are in there, especially from the boxes that I open. And then more fabric just kind of stuffed up here. These are your yardage, typically. This down here is a fabric haul from a fabric shop that I went to this summer. I just couldn't put it anywhere and I didn't refold it. I figured, you know what, I can see what it is. It's going to work right now until I can reorganize. And then these blue baskets are where I put scraps. Now, I don't let anything go to waste. If it's super small or under an inch, yeah. But otherwise, this could be good for scraps. And because I do machine embroidery, I love applique. This is where I usually go digging when I have something that I need for the applique. And the bins don't have any rhyme or reason to them, it's just kind of what works. Okay, and then you'll see like pre-cut fabrics that are up here. Now these are not pre-cuts like how you and I traditionally know pre-cuts to be. These are fabric I have pre-cut. At one point I was making hot pads and I needed 9-inch strips. I will do a tutorial on those eventually, so you'll see what those are because they're great. But I'm not doing mass quantities like I was. So I have all this fabric that's pre-cut at 9 inches wide. So it's just all cut right there. And right below it happens to be the solid, or solids, mostly solids of the same. And then they also required a 6-inch pocket. So these are pre-cut 6 inches. And the same with below. These are like my fat quarter size, but not fat quarter, you know, don't have any buddies. They're just fabric I had cut, leftover large pieces from backing, 6-inch strips. So we've got, that's what this is 6-inch, this is 6-inch, and once in a while, just because I'm limited on space, I'll stuff something similar to it on top, because size-wise it works. Okay, so let's talk about what's up here. These are my project bins. These are all full of fabric, but each one has at least one, sub 2, of all the fabric, coordinating fabric for a project that I want to work on. I would buy things and have things in mind, then have a hard time, you know, not using it. Anyway, this made it easier for me to leave the fabric alone until I had that project ready, instead of accidentally stealing one color or one piece for another project. And we're going to be working on a lot of these in different videos. Some of my pre-cut boxes, the projects have ended up in those little boxes, the brown boxes, just because I'm out of these containers. These are actually containers by Lily. They're an art bin. They are 14 inches wide. They are too wide to fit in my cubbies, but they're perfect because you could put 10 by 10 squares in there, fabric, rolls. It seems to hold the pre-cuts really, really well, and yardage. So I like that size, but they do have to be stacked on top. Okay, I have a bunch of jelly rolls in my little Missouri Star bag right there. Alright, so we have towels up here. We also have batting, stabilizer, Insulbrights, and things that are odd shape. Even have, oh, it's down below, the thick stuff that you use for purses and bags. Now right next to this is where I put the larger pieces that are not quite a yard. Everything over here is at least 1 yard. These are the pieces that are not a yard, but they're big. They're still the width of the fabric. So here it's nice because I can see them in this bin, in this basket, and I can get to them constantly in here, honestly, depending on what I need. So that's where those kind of odd shaped pieces go. Down below I have scraps. These seem to be more cut and sewn pieces that will probably end up in some big fun scrap blanket. Sometimes you just make the blanket too big and have to change it. I've made several scrappy blankets, and I wanted my strips to be a certain size, so at one point I had a lot of these bags, organized by size. So even though they're random, they were all like a 10-inch strip or 6-inch strip or whatever. I am saving all my little triangles when I cut off them from doing the binding. And that's where they're collecting. So all of these to me are usable. These are just, you know, scraps. And then these honestly are like leftover. These probably could go in those little blue bins. But a lot of these are like a whole fabric line. Like this is left over from a specific quilt. So all the pieces from that are together. So I can make a small project out of it. Or if I decide to do extra blocks, there's more triangles, then I have everything for that line together, but there's not enough of it to be good anywhere else. Alright, we're kind of in a tight corner right here, but these are my bins where I store scraps. This says 1 inch, 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3, and 3.5 plus. So these are strips. And I try to keep them as flat as I can so they don't get terribly wrinkled in there. But I'm constantly digging in here looking for something. And it's really nice. My 2.5-inch bucket, I pull a lot of things out for borders or bindings. This right here happens to be a basket of scrappy Halloween. That's funny. Christmas. And then over here on my wall, these are all background fabrics. Black and white, some tan, large yardage. And then I have these bins. This one is batik. This one is my novelty fabric. This one right here is kitchen print. And right below it is sewing room print. And this is all Christmas. And then my little notes that I've got stuffed all over on front of those. And then next to that is my pre-cuts. Let's go over there. Alright, this is my little pre-cut corner and my cutting station. So this is where I've been standing lately, my little cut counter, and it's right next to my desk. My sewing desk is right here. I'm really packed in this little room right now, and some transition going on, so things are just a mess. But these are all pre-cuts or kits. Okay, then we come down here. These are fat quarters sets. These are fat quarter individuals and more sets. These are half yard and 1 yard bundles, and the orphan fat quarters, like when you get a grab bag. Haven't organized those very well. Over here I've got the 10 by 10 squares, and then my charm packs are in these two bins right here. Jelly rolls hanging out here and up here. Here's a quilt kit that I want to put together that I bought. Here's another bunch of fabric that I didn't have any more room in those Lily art bins, so I actually put everything here for one line, and that's Lori Holt's newest one. There's my rulers down there. This is my little cut surface. So that is how all of this works. My little room. And you may have noticed this is not fabric related, but this is thread. I store it in this. It's kind of like a baby room organizer. It's perfect for these big spools. And then I also have thread down here in these containers. And there's my little dog bed. More stabilizer. Those bins right there, and my extra machines, all have thread in them. The orangish bins to the right of that have some older fabric that I'm going to list on Etsy. And in the middle of that, you see several bolts of the black and white fabric. And I have dogs. Okay, so this is how I fold my fabric to fit into the section that I want. What I'm looking for ultimately is something to be about this size. But in addition to that, there's a certain way that I fold it that makes it easier for me to cut. So it fits in my cute little cubbies, and then it's easy to cut. First thing I do when I get it home from the store is I open it up, and I'm going to refold it. What I want to do is get so it's long and skinny. And sometimes you need someone to help you, or you've got it draped all over the place. So I've just taken the selvage edge and brought it over to the fold. Okay, and I'm going to do that over the whole piece. This is about 1.5 yards, not too big, but big enough to see what's going on. You want to make sure it's as flat as you can, because we don't want to create wrinkles. But it's going to be super easy to cut when it comes time to working with it if you do this stuff. And that's why I do it. Curious if anyone else does something similar to this, or if you try this, what you think of it. I love it. I've been doing it this way for years. Okay, so now that I've got my fabric folded in half long ways, I've doubled it. So right now I've got 2 edges, which is technically 4 because it's already folded in half. And I'm just going to keep folding it. And me personally, I don't like to see the raw edges, so I'm always putting them on the inside, so I really don't see them. They're not anything I'm going to grab accidentally and pull things out. But I'm going to keep folding these. Now, this is actually a good size. But I'll be honest, it's not the size I want, because I really want it to be this size. And if you look, it's about 1 inch difference. These are about 6 inches wide. My cubbies are 12.5 roughly. So I can do 2 stacks of these side by side when I get them this size. So really this is going to be a little too fat to fit in there, so then I'll just readjust it, manipulate it, instead of folding it that way. Going into thirds I think is going to work well. You just play with it. This is some cool fabric. Really excited to play with this one. So there we go, close enough. Put the yardage down. Look at that. Now I actually have some fabric all coming out all the same. Here's another piece. That one's a little on the wider side, but close enough. Okay. So this is how I get my fabric to fit in my cubby. Here's another piece that's actually, I got it as a remnant. It's 2/3 of a yard. So this is how I fold my fabrics that are in that wire basket for the fabrics that are not quite a yard. So this is not quite a yard, but I do the same thing to start out with anyway. Fold the selvage edges up to the fold. This is a sure wrinkly piece. I think it was the very end of the bolt. Okay, but from here I'm going to go one more time and fold it like this. And then I lay this in the basket on top. And sometimes I'll fold it in half because this is a pretty big piece, but this is where it's going to go into that metal basket where nothing's quite a yard. And now I'm going to show you how to cut off this fabric, which is the whole reason why I folded it this way. And then it just so happened to work when I started with this organization system that I could fit 2 side by side. So when you first get your fabric out, notice I just opened it up, and what I have are 2 ends down here. If I were doing strips, needing lots of blocks, something where I'm going to need width of fabric, this is perfect for doing this. So I have my fabric down here. I'm going to want to square up the ends. Usually it's a little rough, especially if it just comes from the store. I can see that's not a good end. It kind of looks like it's cleaned up, but it's not. So let's do that before we go any further, which is usually the first step in this process anyway. But you see how this ruler fits on here really nice, and it fits on my little space. And again, this table is only 35 by 24 or 23, not the table, but this cut surface I'm working with. But here's my Missouri Star ruler, and it is 15 inches but it is big enough for me to cut the width of the fabric. So I'm going to line up on a line. You want to make sure that your lines up here are straight. If you folded it right and it's nice and you took time to do it, you shouldn't have wrinkles. You want to double check those inside though, and maybe even iron this. I know this will be fine for what I'm doing. Okay, let's get a nice clean edge so everything looks straight. It does. Okay, now for the project I'm going to be doing in a minute, so stay tuned, there'll be another video. I need a 1.5 inch piece. So I'm actually only needing one strip. If I needed more or we're doing a binding, this is perfect because it's doubled over. I can just cut my 2.5 inch binding or whatever size I'm cutting. But here I'm going to do one 1.5 inch strip. And we're done. And then I'll just refold this, but I want to show you how straight that was. See? And now I have this piece, super easy, super manageable, because it's not a super big piece of fabric. Cut. If you have any questions about my organization, want to know more or see more, let me know. Thank you. Have a good day. Alright, so here's another one. It's a remnant. It is at least a yard. I also forgot to show you how I fold my backing, so really there's a little more to this video. Okay, so again I'm going to take my fold and my salvage edge, put everything all on one line, do the whole piece, and then double it. So it's just super manageable. That's just the easiest way I can explain it. I just started doing this many years ago, and I don't know how. I'm good with space, and I'm just like things to fit right and be efficient. So I don't know what got me to come up with this. If I saw it somewhere, it just made sense. So, but this is what I've been using forever, and I love it because it's super easy when I need something. I used to have a lot smaller surface to work with than this. Now this one I can tell I need to fold it in thirds. There we go. And again, it's about 6 inches. And from here to here, there we go, 6 inches. Just kind of what works for me. So there's that. Now let me get a piece of this backing fabric. And I'll use this one because this is one I haven't had the time to fix yet. And this is, see if I can figure this out. Oh. This is a harder project to do. Usually I get my ironing board involved with this because, as you can see, we have yardage, lots of yardage. And sometimes the yardage ends up in a back, oftentimes. Sometimes it doesn't. Like if I get solid bolts of color, that's going to be used in a different way. But again, I'm all about folding it and being efficient and working with my small space. So first thing I do is, we know it's folded over already. We have 2 salvage edges. I'm going to go down to the fold. And again, I'm just working in the space that you can see. It's slightly out of camera too, but that's about it. And wow. So I'm not really folding it yet, other than to double it. I'm just trying to make use of the space that I have without getting another person to help me. I've just become pretty independent that way. So this is right now just trying to fold it in half and keep it tamed. You may come up with a system. I usually incorporate my ironing board on this, and then it has a bigger surface. But with this, camera can't get to the ironing board. But the point is you can do this on pretty much any small surface. So again, I'm just folding it in half, putting the salvage edges near the fold, trying to keep it from getting terribly wrinkled. And then we're going to go back and fold the whole thing up, but right now we need to start out with this skinny strip. I promise this makes life so much easier when it comes time to pulling your fabric out and using it. You will not believe how easy that is. Okay. Again, everything is just getting folded in half right now. The rest of the folding I'm doing is a temporary fold just to deal with the space. So don't even worry about what I'm doing there. Okay, so now I've got all of it folded in half. Here's my end. We know there's an end down here too. Whoop, that's not what I thought was happening. And we're going to take and fold this in half because the goal is I want to always have two sorry, gotta keep it flat. Two pieces of fabric, because a lot of times when I'm cutting in bulk anyway. Makes it so much easier. So you've got the right manageable size, plus you've got it doubled, and that just makes your cutting easier. So right now all I'm doing is I'm just going down, making sure everything is doubled and paired up, and with minimal kinks and wrinkles, you are definitely going to not sew with it coming right off of here. Probably need to press it, so don't worry about that. But I like to try to minimize my wrinkles. So just keep holding. Oh, I've done something I don't like. Oh, I don't like that at all. Okay, so I'll show you what I did. This is a salvage edge. I always want that on the inside. And the way I grab my two ends, I put the salvages on the outside. And this is just my funny little quirk. But I want them to be on the inside. And I've done this enough. I know how to get them where they need to be. So there we go. There's my salvages on the inside. Kept it straight. Let's see. Yeah. It might not bother you. You might be totally fine with how that was. I just don't like it. Okay, so now we've got one big long piece of the fabric folded, and then I'm going to grab the end and bring it up and just keep making it small. Now my yardage area for bigger pieces, the fabric does not get folded as small because it would be silly, and it's just easier and more use of space to do it this way. So just kind of eyeball it. I don't really have a specific size over here, other than these are going to be standing up, and in some cases they'll be laying down. But I think I'm going to, yeah, that actually looks like a good size. Let me grab another one that is folded and see how close I came. Oh, look at that. Oh, you're kidding. I have another one that I didn't fold. Well, I'm going to be busy. Alright, so here's another one. Yardage that's folded. See? And then I stand them up. I like to put like books with their folded end out. And because those cubbies are 12.5 inches by 12.5 inches, this actually fits in there. Sometimes with a little bit of space at the top, like you saw where I was squeezing some more fabric in on the top of those bins. But that's what I do. That way I can see, I know that it's yardage because of where I put it and how it's folded, and it fits. Hopefully that's helpful. Thanks, bye.